Where are you now? I'm watching a baseball game with my bro. That's when I became certain. My husband was lying to me. Because his brother isn't in any condition to watch a baseball game right now. Once I realized all of this, I decided to take revenge on my husband. I found unlikely allies for this. My name is Sarah. I'm 27 years old. After graduating from a medical college, I work as a nurse at a university hospital. All jobs are tough, but being a nurse means dealing with people's lives. While I don't directly intervene as a doctor would, the everyday support and minor treatments I perform come with a weight of responsibility that's not much different. When I was in elementary school, I had to be hospitalized due to an illness. Despite being young, I felt a lot of anxiety, and when my parents couldn't visit me due to work, I would cry alone. But the one who saved my heart during those times was the nurse who was taking care of me back then. Sarah, it's okay if you don't hold back when you're feeling lonely. It's definitely going to get better. Let's hang in there a little longer. The female nurse who encouraged me like this every day. Thanks to her, I can say without exaggeration that I was able to overcome the hardships of my hospital stay. After being discharged, I admired her and decided to become a nurse. I studied hard to achieve my dream, and now it's been 5 years since I've become a nurse. The job is certainly challenging, but every time I see a patient smile, I can genuinely feel that I'm glad to be doing this work. I'm fortunate that I can continue my current job. One of the reasons is it's because of my husband Bob, whom I married a year ago. I first met Bob at a party. Once we started talking, we found out that we had a lot in common, and we hit it off pretty quickly. This led to us dating. After 2 years of dating, he proposed to me. I love you, Sarah. You put your heart and soul into everything you do. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Are you sure you really want to be with me? Why would you even question it? I want to be with you because you're Sarah, so I want you to get married with me. Yeah, I want to be with you too, Bob. So we officially tied the knot a year ago, but there's one thing that's been bothering me. That is, he doesn't get along well with his parents. Ideally, we would have wanted to hold our wedding ceremony when we got our marriage license, but he refused. The reason was simple. He didn't want to have anything to do with his parents. So when we went to pay a visit to his parents to announce our marriage, it was hard to set a date. We somehow managed to pay a visit to my in-laws, but my husband was in a bad mood the entire time, and we only stayed for 30 minutes. We ended up getting married without having much of a conversation with my in-laws. Of course, I'd like my in-laws to attend our wedding ceremony too. So I decided to be honest about how I feel. Bob, can we talk for a moment? What's up? Well, it's about your parents. We also have the ceremony to think about, so I think we should go see them and have a proper discussion. At my suggestion, my husband let out a deep sigh and responded with an annoyed expression. Didn't I tell you before that I don't want to talk about my parents? As far as I'm concerned, I don't care if we don't invite anyone to our wedding. But we should at least invite your parents, Bob. That's enough. If you insist on having family members there, we can just ask my brother. Isn't that good enough? Well, I'd love to have your brother attend, but you're really persistent, Sarah. This is a matter of my family, so please don't meddle too much. With another sigh, my husband left the living room. I was left alone in the room, slumping down on the couch. Staring blankly at the ceiling, I was overwhelmed by a feeling of emptiness. Oh dear, what should I do? It's such a shame that we're distant from my father-in-law and mother-in-law. They're such nice people. I want them to attend the ceremony. What can I do to make him understand? Even after that, whenever I suggested, let's go see your parents, my husband flat out refused. At some point, he would get angry just by mentioning his parents. One day, my brother-in-law and his wife were coming to visit us at our apartment. We had dinner together once when we reported our marriage. Although they live in the neighboring city, and we can easily meet them. It was the first time they visited us since our marriage. After 10 o'clock, our apartment buzzer rang. When I opened the door, there were my brother-in-law, Jake, and his wife, Emily. "Hello, Jake. It's been a while." To my greeting, Jake showed a bright smile. "Hey, Sarah. Long time no see. I apologize for dropping by unexpectedly. Hope you don't mind." "Oh, not at all. Bob is waiting inside. Please come in." "Awesome. Thanks. Well, here I come." Following Jake, Emily takes off her shoes. "Hello," she calls out, but there is no response from her. Did she not hear me? Emily. She didn't talk much last time we met either. I wish we could be better friends. As they enjoy some casual chatter while having the cake, the atmosphere begins to lighten. Since they decided to have lunch, I started preparing the meal. As I was getting things ready, my brother-in-law entered the kitchen. "Sarah, I heard from our folks. You haven't visited home since you got married?" Yes, well..." "It's Bob, isn't it? He doesn't get along well with Dad, right?" "Yes, that's right. I want my in-laws to come to our wedding, but Bob is hesitant." Upon hearing my confession, my brother-in-law makes a troubled face. After pondering a bit, he said apologetically, "I'm sorry. Bob's being stubborn. I wish I could do something about it." "I'm sorry to cause you trouble, brother-in-law." No, I'm the one who should apologize for not being able to do anything. I'll try to talk to Bob about it indirectly." "Really? Thank you. That would be a great help." Meanwhile, my husband and sister-in-law are having fun playing mobile games. Despite my worries, they seem to be enjoying themselves. I started to feel frustrated with my husband. Just as my brother-in-law and his wife were about to leave, my husband spoke up in a low voice. "Hey, what's up?" "Did you say something to my brother?" Why do you ask?" When we were leaving, my brother said, "You should think about Sarah and confront our parents. You were chatting with him while making lunch, right? You stirred up something unnecessary, didn't you?" With a look I've never seen before, my husband glared at me. As I was silenced by the awkwardness, he opened his mouth again. "You know, isn't it unfair to talk to my brother about our parents, knowing that I don't want to be involved with them?" "No, I didn't mean..." I'm turned off. I'm not feeling like doing the wedding anymore. What? With a large clicking of his tongue, my husband left the house. He didn't come back until the next day. Since that day, my relationship with Bob has been strained. Our conversations dwindled to the bare minimum, and the once light-hearted atmosphere was gone. Then my husband's absences began to increase gradually, especially on holidays. He was almost never home, and I started to get suspicious. He's been going out too often. Thinking this, I plucked up my courage to confront him. "Hey, you've been going out a lot on your days off recently. Where do you go?" "Does it matter where? Do I need to report everything to you?" "What's with that tone? Do you have a reason you can't tell me?" Half jokingly, I asked him, and his eyebrows shot up. I didn't miss that moment. In a fluster, he said, I've been going to my parents' house." "Parents' house? Bob's?" "Really? I mean, with the wedding coming up, Sarah wanted my parents to join us, remember?" "Well, yeah, but if that's the case, shouldn't I go too?" No, it's fine. My parents would feel uncomfortable with Sarah around. Anyway, that's the situation, so don't worry about it." My husband ended the conversation almost forcefully. It was an attitude that didn't allow me any say in the matter. After that, my husband continued to visit his parents' house on his days off. I expressed my desire to accompany him, but he never agreed. Then, one day, while I was at work in the hospital, a familiar patient was brought in on an emergency basis. What, brother-in-law?" Even when I called out to him, his response was sluggish and his body temperature was high. He was also having mild convulsions. According to the doctor, it's probably heat stroke. I quickly tried to call his wife, but there was no answer, just continued ringing. I'm sure his wife is a homemaker, so why isn't she picking up the phone? Even though my brother-in-law is in such a condition, what should I do? But panicking won't help. I decided to switch gears and call my husband. However, like my brother-in-law's wife, he didn't pick up the phone. My husband should be at his parents' house today, so I decided to try calling his parents' house. Since our marriage, I have not been able to meet or even properly talk with my in-laws. They might not think highly of me, but I can't care about that right now. When I dialed the landline of the in-laws' house, after a few rings, my mother-in-law picked up the phone. This is Sarah. I apologize for not being in touch for so long, mother-in-law. Oh, Sarah! It's been a long time. Have you been doing well? Yes, thanks to you. I'm sorry, I haven't been able to visit. Don't worry about that. I'm glad to hear you're doing well, Sarah. And is Bob doing well? Yes, he's well. Wait, what? I was taken aback by my mother-in-law's words. My husband should be at his parents' house right now. Confused, I hesitantly asked my mother-in-law, Mother-in-law, isn't Bob there now? Bob? I haven't seen him since he introduced you when you got married. What? I thought he's been visiting almost every week. There's no way. You know Bob dislikes us, don't you, Sarah? My husband hadn't been going to his parents' house. What does this mean? Wasn't he supposed to go back home to smooth things over with his parents in preparation for the wedding? The more I thought about it, the more confused I became. To confirm the facts, I called Bob again. Of course, he didn't pick up at first, but I kept calling persistently, over and over again. After about the 10th call, he finally answered the phone. He spoke in a noticeably irritated tone. What is it? You keep calling. I'm busy. Busy? Even though you haven't even been to your parents' house? Huh? How do you? I just had a chat with my mother-in-law on the phone. Hey, what's the deal? It's not just today. You haven't been visiting your parents' home all this time, right? Well, that's... Explain it properly. Where are you right now? As I waited silently for his answer, my husband nonchalantly said, I'm watching baseball with Jake. Baseball? Yeah, you can hear it, can't you? The cheers of watching the game? Jake and I are having a blast right now. At that moment, waves of pent-up anger overtook my restraint. Indeed, behind my husband, lively voices could be heard. Judging from the sounds, it seemed true that they were at a baseball game. But that's not the issue. The main issue was that my husband was lying big time. How should I confront him? Holding back my anger, I pondered. Then, Hey, Bob, how long are you going to be on the phone? Emily, my sister-in-law, whose voice I could recognize through the phone, chimed in. There was no mistaking it, since we just met the other day. Realizing that the call had been disconnected, and only the busy signal was echoing in my ear. Ah, so that's how it is. Everything was a lie. I can't forgive this. At this rate, I'll corner him by any means necessary. I, who realized everything, headed to Jake's place. Fortunately, his condition had already stabilized, and he was sleeping soundly. I'll reappear later. As I was about to leave the room, opening the door, a voice came from behind me. Sarah? Oh, Jake, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. It was a heat stroke, huh? I was feeling sluggish, but I was so busy that I didn't have time to hydrate. Please be careful. I was really surprised when you were brought in. Sorry. So, why are you here, Sarah? Well, actually... I informed Jake that my husband might be with Emily at the moment. Then rather than being surprised, Jake smirked. I see. You've noticed, Sarah. By the way you're saying it, Jake, did you know about this all along? Yeah, well, I found out about a month ago. and I just started gathering evidence. But I've got more than enough evidence now, so don't worry. I see. I'm sorry. I didn't know anything. No, it's okay. I was waiting for the right timing to tell you because I thought it would be too harsh on you. Though it turned out this way, I feel like I can finally move on. Jake laughed weakly, but he seemed somewhat lonely. At the same time, I felt an immense dislike for the two who made Jake and me feel this way. I waited for my brother-in-law's recovery, and then we headed to his parents' house together. Upon explaining the sequence of events to my in-laws, they were momentarily at a loss for words after learning the truth. With apologetic looks, they began to apologize. Sarah, we're sorry. Our foolish son, to have an affair? We're sorry, Sarah. We never expected this to happen. Please, don't apologize. I'm okay. But, right, honey? Yes, apologies won't fix this. We're truly sorry. It's okay. Instead, could you lend me and your son a little help? My brother-in-law and I proposed two things to my in-laws. From now on, ignore any calls for help from my husband and my brother-in-law's wife. Accept our respective divorces wholeheartedly. Without any hesitation, my in-laws promised their cooperation. After that, my brother-in-law and I each made simultaneous calls to his wife and my husband. Perhaps surprised to be called at the same time as Emily, my husband picked up the phone immediately. Hello? Sarah, what's up? What do you mean, what's up? You're with Emily right now, aren't you? What are you talking about? Why would I be with my brother's wife? I heard Emily's voice in the background when I called earlier. And your brother knows everything. We've got concrete evidence of the affair. Eh? Thinking he could still fool me, my husband kept spouting nonsense, like it's a misunderstanding, and he just happened to run into her. I was fed up with his lack of remorse and his constant prioritization of self-preservation, even at this point. Out of sheer anger and feeling betrayed, I raised my voice. Shut up! Misunderstanding? What are you saying at this point? Do you think such excuses will work? You took advantage of my feelings and betrayed me in the worst possible way. I will never forgive you. I'm divorcing you, you scum. What? Wait! I didn't intend to divorce. What? How dare you say that after cheating on me? Just so you know, I have no intention of getting back with you. You and that woman. I hope you both go to hell. Your parents won't help you anymore. Suffer for the rest of your life, regretting what you've done, you piece of trash. Without waiting for his response, I hung up. Shortly after, my brother-in-law and I went to the city office to get divorce papers. Eventually, my husband and I divorced amicably. Initially reluctant, he finally signed the divorce papers after being persuaded by his parents. Of course, my brother-in-law's divorce was also finalized. We both demanded substantial alimony from them. I later found out that my ex-husband had been involved with my brother-in-law's wife for quite some time. Apparently, he was meeting her during lunch breaks and after work, and their affair was exposed at the worst possible time by their coworkers. As a result, his reputation at work plummeted. Unable to withstand the judgment from his colleagues, he eventually quit his job after repeated absences. My brother-in-law's wife, who was a stay-at-home wife, also had her life turned upside down. She lived with my ex-husband for a while after the divorce, but as their financial situation worsened, their arguments increased, and they broke up within a few months. For a while, she won't be able to lead a decent life. On my end, surprisingly, I've been getting by day to day without much fuss. Right after my divorce, I moved to an apartment near work, living a carefree life. I still keep in regular contact with my brother-in-law and my ex-in-laws. Where I am today is thanks to them. They will always be important people to me. That will never change. I'll make sure to live in a way that won't bring shame to them. I'll prove that I can be happy on my own. That's the solemn promise I made to myself.
If you don't want a divorce, get out of this house right now. All right.
These words came suddenly from my husband. Obviously, I was taken aback. He must have been quite confident that I wouldn't file for divorce to go to such lengths to intimidate me. When I couldn't take it anymore, I decided to seek advice from someone else. My name is Anna. I'm a 30-year-old office worker. My husband, James, and I are about to celebrate our 5th wedding anniversary. We're still waiting for the blessing of a child. This has led to a constant barrage of questions from my mother-in-law about when she can expect grandchildren. My father-in-law passed away years ago. My mother-in-law lives on the inheritance he left behind. Honestly, I feel on the verge of a nervous breakdown with her constant prodding about grandchildren. Actually, I might already be there. Despite seeing me like this, my husband James doesn't lift a finger to help. In fact, he recently started siding with his mother, blaming me for our troubles. I used to adore him for his kindness when we were dating, but after we got married, his attitude completely changed. Without any consultation, he decided we would live near his childhood home. On my days off from work, I am summoned to his parents' house and made to do housework all day long. Of course, there are no breaks. While I'm busy with chores at his parents' house, the two of them either go out together or stay in watching TV and laughing. I was even yelled at once for making too much noise with the vacuum cleaner. After that, I was forbidden to use it and was told to clean with a broom and a rag instead. Then my sister-in-law moved back home. She was originally living in a neighboring town, but due to some personality conflict, she had recently moved back. Her return has only added to my burden. She has a 4-year-old daughter and expects me to make her kindergartner's lunch every day. When I tell her that it's impossible because of my job, I get yelled at by my mother-in-law saying, "Your sister-in-law is dealing with the aftermath of a divorce." My husband says, "Don't you want to be useful to the family?" And my sister-in-law herself, she says, "It'll be good practice for when you have a child of your own, so you should be thankful." So I end up waking up at 4 a.m. every morning. I make my niece's lunchbox and breakfast for my in-laws, then head back to my place, finish my own housework, and go to work. That's the brutal routine I've been forced into. My husband, of course, doesn't lift a finger to help with any household chores. The only time I get to rest is during my break time at work. One day, after living this exhausting routine for a while, my husband dropped a bombshell on me. "Oh, by the way, Anna, you should quit your job." "What?" "I've talked it over with my mom and sister. You know, she's going through a rough time, you understand." "No, I don't get what you're saying." "Listen, I mean quit your job and take care of the house." He snapped at me before storming off to take a bath. I couldn't see the connection between my sister-in-law's divorce and me quitting my job. My husband is stuck in a dead-end job. And there are months when I earn more than him. Does he really think we can live off his salary alone? Neither my mother-in-law nor my sister-in-law work. I can't understand why they can't handle the housework. Feeling like I couldn't handle any more of this, I grabbed my car keys and drove off to one place that came to mind. That place was my childhood home, a bit far from the apartment we live in now. My parents had moved overseas and no one currently lived there. Because my parents are the worrying type, I couldn't bring myself to talk to them about the matter. Whenever something unpleasant happened, I'd come here. This is my home, filled with precious memories. As I was lost in these thoughts, my phone rang. It was my husband.
"Hey, I just got to the bath and you're gone. Are you back at your parents' place again?"
"Yes, so what?"
"Could you stop running back home every time something goes wrong? We're not kids."
My husband loves my parents' house, but his words simply didn't resonate. "I'll be working from here for a while, and no, I won't go to your parents' house either."
"Stop messing around. Come back home now."
Defeated by his forcefulness, I returned to our house. Afterwards, I quit my beloved job in the fashion industry. My clueless coworkers speculated I might be pregnant. I was given no free time, made to manage the household all day. Even when I caught a cold and ran a high fever, no one seemed to care. I had become a servant in this house, a slave, to put it bluntly. However, one day, amidst this lifestyle, something happened. Guess what? My sister-in-law was getting remarried. Moreover, her fiancé was an executive at a major corporation earning a substantial income. It was quite a shock. My sister-in-law isn't exactly a beauty, and her personality leaves a lot to be desired. I understood everyone has different tastes, and there are all sorts of people out there. The entire in-law family was celebrating, shouting about how she was marrying into money. My sister-in-law, full of pride, showed me a photo of the man. Huh? This man. I thought, looking at the photo when my husband said something unbelievable. Because of this, Anna, your parents' house will become my sister's family place. Wait a minute, that house is what my parents left for me. It's not for you to decide. The whole family has decided. You who lives off my money don't have a say in this. Was the person standing in front of me a devil in human skin? That house was left for me by my father, a place for me to live if I ever had children. James should know this. Why can he act so selfishly? My heart was at its limit. As if to add insult to injury, my mother-in-law said, "You can't even give us a grandchild. Can't you be useful around the house for once?" There was no one on my side in this house. I returned home, hastily packed a few belongings, and headed to my parents' house. I made a firm decision in my heart. I would never go back. A few days later, having received no calls from my husband, I thought he might have reconsidered. Then suddenly the doorbell rang. Standing there were my husband and sister-in-law. "What are you doing here?" "We thought we should take a look around soon," my sister-in-law said, barging in. Despite my pleas for them to stop, they ignored me, snooping around the house. They treated me as if I was invisible. "This house is pretty nice. Too good for you, Anna." "And when do you plan to move out of this house, Anna? My sister's wedding is coming up soon. Get it together," my husband said, unchanged. As I stayed silent, my husband added, "If you don't want to get divorced, leave now." My husband, confident that I wouldn't divorce him, was grinning with my sister-in-law. Looking my way. Got it. Once I confirmed, my husband seemed pleased, saying it's all he wanted to hear. Apparently, under the guise of celebrating my sister-in-law's wedding, they are planning a long, family-only trip, starting tomorrow. Naturally, I'm not included in this little escapade. My husband told me to pack up and leave by the time they get back. Then he and my sister-in-law left with an excited air about them. Watching their backs, I allowed myself a small, mirthless smile. 2 weeks later, the day for my in-laws to return from their trip arrived. My phone has been ringing nonstop since morning. The caller, my husband. Also mixed in were calls from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Finally, unable to ignore the noise, I answered the call.
"Hey, Anna, where the hell are you?"
"I'm at home," I replied.
"Liar, you're not at the apartment or at your parents' place, and what's the meaning of this?"
"What are you talking about?"
"Your family house. There's a for sale sign."
"Yeah, I put it up for sale."
"What? What are you talking about?"
"Well, after you all left, I gave it some thought. The house you're in now just seems so dirty. I do like things to be clean after all."
"I'm divorcing you. Don't mess with me," my husband yelled.
That was going to be my line. Let's talk through our lawyers from now on. With that, I hung up on him while he was still shouting. On the day my husband and sister-in-law returned, I had already been in touch with a certain person. He was a friend of my father's, who runs a real estate company. I didn't know anything about selling houses, but he kindly advised me and we managed to make a pretty good deal. As a side note, the apartment we had been living in was in my name since my husband couldn't pass the screening process. Of course, since I had no intention of living there anymore, I canceled the lease while they were away and sent all of my husband's belongings to his parents' house, cash on delivery. Even afterwards, I kept getting calls from my in-laws, which I ignored completely. I recorded all the unbearable messages they left on my voicemail. According to my lawyer, my husband was hesitating even though he had said he wanted a divorce. It seems he didn't want to lose his maid. I thought it would be a long battle, but then my husband suddenly agreed to divorce. From what my lawyer told me, my husband, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law abruptly showed up at his office saying they would divorce me and to process it quickly. My husband had been reluctant about the divorce, but my mother-in-law told him that since my sister-in-law's new husband was rich, they could hire a new housekeeper with money and get rid of the barren wife and get a younger, newer wife. With that, my husband agreed to the divorce. Moreover, they offered to pay a small settlement on the condition that I would not get involved with them any longer. I thought that was supposed to be my line, but I decided to accept what was offered. Not long after, my sister-in-law got remarried. For a while after that, life was quiet. Taking care of myself was so much easier than I thought. I deeply regretted not divorcing sooner. Well, I'm finally free. Time to enjoy my new life. Just as I was beginning to embrace this thought, an incident happened. Out of nowhere, my in-laws showed up at my new home. The moment I opened the door, they barged in, and my ex-husband demanded, "We need to talk, sit down." Despite wondering who they thought they were, I took a seat, then he said, "Come back home, we forgive you." Unable to close my gaping mouth, I answered, "Excuse me?" I wanted them to leave immediately, so I teased, "Oh, are you talking about your sister's husband? Has he disappeared?" The three of them widened their eyes as if to say, "Why do you know about that?" and stared at me. What, do you know something? After we registered our marriage, he suddenly disappeared. We can't contact him. The mother-in-law added with a hint of excitement. On top of that, he ran off with our family's fortune. Was this your doing? You've brought us such terrible fortune, daughter-in-law. She looked as if she would attack me at any moment. Tired of their baseless accusations, I decided to reveal a truth to them. Wow, I didn't know your sister liked hamburgers so much. What are you talking about hamburgers all of a sudden? Don't you know? Your sister's husband isn't some executive at a major company. He's just a part-timer at a hamburger shop. Hearing this, the sister-in-law froze at a loss for words. I continued my story. In my single days, my friend and I loved to visit different hamburger shops. There was one favorite shop where a certain employee always made mistakes and got yelled at by the manager. The man happened to be the sister-in-law's husband. Since I started dating my husband, he told me, no more hamburgers, so I had given up my hobby. I had recognized the man from a photo the sister-in-law had proudly shown me, but I decided it wasn't my place to interfere and stayed silent. When I showed her the shop's homepage for evidence, she stared intently at her husband's picture in the background. By the way, I visited the shop recently with a friend, but her husband was no longer there. He probably left town. That's marriage fraud. It seems that's what they call it. I'm sorry for your loss. The mother-in-law, who had been silent, said, You knew and you didn't tell us. We took care of you, who can't even have children, for years. You owe us. At her nonsensical rant, I decided to reveal another truth I had been keeping. First of all, I'm not the reason we couldn't have kids. Maybe my ex-husband can let you in on that. The mother-in-law looked at her son in shock, and he guiltily looked down. When we couldn't conceive after our marriage, we decided to get tested at the insistence of the mother-in-law. There was nothing wrong with me, but my husband had a very low sperm count. The doctor told us that he was the reason we couldn't have kids. When the mother-in-law asked about the test results, my husband instantly lied that I was the problem. I was angry, but they just said nonsensical things like, you have to support your husband. Refusing to face the truth, my ex-husband joined forces with my mother-in-law, pinning all the blame on me in the end. Look, I admit I was wrong, my ex-husband said. Once the house sells, we'll get a good chunk of money, right? Let's all live happily as a family again. Well, we've been through a lot, but let's get along from now on, my mother-in-law chimed in. At the end of the day, I realized they probably came here today with the intention of getting their hands on my money. What a disgusting lot. No chance I'm getting back together with you, and I don't consider any of you family. Upon hearing this, my ex-husband retorted, Getting a little big for your boots now, aren't you? I know, even if you sold the house, you hardly have any savings. How do you plan to survive? It seems he had sneaked a peek at my bank account during my single days, and now he had this smug look on his face, as if to say, now that you know, do as you're told. To poke fun at my situation, the three of them were smirking at me, so I decided to enlighten them with a little truth. Sure, my savings aren't that much. See, I told you, so... But instead, I've invested in stocks, enough to live without working for the next few years at least. Their faces looked like they wanted to say, no way, as they stared at me. Actually, since I was a child, my father was interested in stocks and investments. He had a knack for foreseeing things, and I inherited those skills and built up a decent amount of wealth. The money that supported my parents' move abroad was all from those successful investments. Of course, I had kept this a secret from my money-grubbing ex-family. Seeing the disappointed trio, I asked, You can leave now. Oh, what was it again? It's in our divorce conditions. If we approach each other without reason in the future, either party will have to pay a penalty. Are you going to pay, or should I call the police for trespassing? The word police scared them off, and they left in a hurry. I immediately consulted my lawyer about the day's events and was told to contact him if the ex-family tried to get close again. As expected, once they knew I had assets, my ex-husband sent me a ton of messages begging to reconcile. Nostalgic photos of places we've been on, dates, creepy messages like, I'm here right now, thinking about those days, arrived almost daily. I thought about blocking him, but kept everything as evidence just in case. And yes, I wondered how he managed to text me all day while supposedly working, but I didn't really care. But when he started trying to contact my friends, I decided enough was enough and sent him a message. I'll go to the police if this continues. I sent him a photo of our divorce agreement and the nearest police station along with the message. After that, the messages stopped, and I never heard from my ex-husband again. I thanked my lawyer, and he dropped a bombshell. Apparently, my ex-husband planned to live off his sister's new husband and had quit his job when she remarried. He was a fool for leaving a decent job at a decent company. Document you asked for should be arriving soon, I told my lawyer. I had placed another request with the lawyer separately from this matter. Soon after we were married, I felt something was off. My precious personal belongings were slowly disappearing. First, it was a necklace that I bought myself when I was single. Then a fountain pen my parents had given me as a job starting present. Bags, rings, and above all, the fountain pen was something I cherished greatly. When I talked to my husband about it, he yelled, "Don't worry about losing things." Suspicious, I installed a surveillance camera without telling my husband. What it captured was my husband and mother-in-law rummaging through my closet, grinning. Once my sister-in-law moved back in, the footage showed 3 people instead of 2. Taking advantage of my silence, their actions escalated. They were selling my personal belongings, their greed for money fueling their actions. They probably saw the balance in my bank book at that time. It continued until the divorce, so I collected plenty of physical evidence. Just as they thought I wouldn't claim anything, I filed for damages and compensation for emotional distress due to their actions. They must be panicking right now, but it's their own doing. As for what happened to the 3 of them, my sister-in-law's ex-husband found out about this incident, and it seems he took custody of their daughter. Seeing how my sister-in-law didn't seem to care for her daughter, I felt relieved. Just a while ago, I saw the daughter-in-law and what seemed to be the ex-husband happily holding hands and shopping. She had a happy smile on her face, something I never saw when she was at my in-laws. The 3 of them who wanted to live comfortably apparently applied for welfare, but they, being healthy and nothing else, were naturally refused. As for my husband, his pride kept him from finding another job. Eventually, he went to his old workplace and begged on his knees, but they had been hoping for him to quit and ended up calling the police, which he hated. He has to work, but it seems he can only find day labor jobs. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law had to pay me compensation, so they both started part-time jobs at a nearby supermarket. But the 2 of them, who have hardly worked before, are struggling with the unfamiliar work. Maybe it's coincidence, but since they started, the supermarket sales have dropped significantly. They got quite a strong nickname, the plague-bringing mother and daughter. By the way, the marriage scammer is still at large. I thought they owned the house they were living in, but it was actually a rental. Unable to pay the rent, the 3 of them moved to a rundown apartment that was infamous in the neighborhood. Their living is hand to mouth, and it seems they're always fighting. The other day, the police were called because their fighting was too loud. As for me, thanks to their help, I sold the house and used the money as capital to start a new apparel company with a colleague from my old job. Recently, we've been gaining more customers and even featured in magazines and TV. Being able to return to the job I love is the happiest thing for me. Oh, and there's one more thing. I've met a man through work and we're getting married. His parents and siblings are very kind and they've been treating me very well. What's more, we're expecting a baby, and I'll be the mother I've always dreamed of being next year. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life right now.